It is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succour of those years wherein we are set, uprooting all knowledge in the fields that we know, so that those who find our teachings will move to our grandest design. What interpretation they shall have is not ours to rule, but to guide. The teachings of Ioulaum the Father. Down past the last reach of torchlight, through black tunnels that pulse with ancient psionic residue, a silent city waits. Once, Elendil belonged to the Illithids. Its halls, now still, were once alive with neural conversation and endless experimentation. Every chamber was scored into the very fabric of the city by Illithid minds. Their glyphs still hum with low psychic resonance, activated by any thought too curious to leave. Illithid stone forms begin to mingle with Netheril silhouettes, arcanists with stones circling in patterns an inch from their face within the sculptures. The weave lives here still, channeled through walls carved with ritual precision. A spiral stair descends into what was once a central nexus. Above its entrance, etched into a single sheet of black-veined crystal, a final scripture waits. Ioulaum, Father of Netheril, and seer into the height of magic. The deep speech crackles as if the crystal had been waiting to speak it aloud for an age. Beyond it, the chamber opens. Biological tentacles form walls into a perfect dome. Ancient alien statues, half illithid, half abstraction, standing sentinel, carved with a tinge upon the faces, representing reverent madness. At the center lies a brine pool, and into this chamber descended several mind flayers, shapes in robes, gliding on psychic currents. They were all hoons, mind flayers who had embraced undeath in pursuit of knowledge and freedom from the Elder Brain's dominion. Their minds were sharpened by centuries of study, and they had come seeking answers. The brine pool pulsed with arcane weight, old, ponderous thought pressing against the minds of the undead illithids floating above it. Each was ancient in their own right, their robes stitched with deep speech, their tentacles curling in contemptuous stillness. But even their pride wavered as the chamber around them tightened with a thought vast enough to change the small amount of air within the chamber. Tolixith, one of the mind flayers, broke the silence, his psychic projection honed like a surgeon's scalpel. We have come for a record. We found knowledge hoarded in the bones of a forgotten empire. We seek to expand our consciousness. Our time is brief, so speak, Ancient One. We offer clarity in return. His words dripped with entitlement. These were no curious archivists. These were conquerors of thought, tyrants in undead flesh, each certain that their presence was a gift. A massive, contemplative presence filled the chamber like rising water. "You come as if you are owed something," came the voice, cold and effortless. "You posture with the arrogance of children who believe they have invented domination. You are not unique, but I will indulge your request." Shakarak bristled. "We are Alhoon, unchained from the tyranny of the Elder Brain, untouched by the decay of this feeble world. We are the future of psionics and arcana united in perfect unity." "I am older than the concept of your kind," Ioulaum replied, a tone so calm it rang of certainty. "And if you are the future, it will be a short and unimpressive one." Girvan, another mind flayer, pressed forward, his thoughts coiling with haughty curiosity. "You were flesh once, a man, a surface dweller drunk on spellbooks. The carvings as we descended spoke of a father of magic. Are you that for which it speaks?" "In 544, I began," the oracle answered. "While your ancestors groped through the dark for brains to nourish yourselves on, I instructed over 3,000 arcanists in the refinement of spellcraft. I do not say that to impress you. I say it because it makes your presence here, demanding history, embarrassing." Tolixith sneered. And you spent your gift on orcs. I spent my gift on perfection, Ioulaum said, and with that, he opened the memory. Orcs screamed as walls of evocation slammed into them. Illusion twisted their leaders into madness. Necromancy raised their dead before their eyes. For 16 months, the slaughter continued, terrorizing our people. Over 140,000 orcs fell for their basic need for violence. The snow was red. The peaks, renamed Bone Hill and Thunder Peak for their role in this madness, both bore witness. The excursion into extinction, Ioulaum murmured. 50,000 troops and 32,000 sacrifices. Not one orc escaped from our attack. Not one. We surrounded the horde, and throughout we positioned magical gates. We required instantaneous transport of the arcanists from one location to another. You see, the orcs were trying to escape, fleeing for their meager existence. So we blocked all points of escape and slaughtered them. Velxax projected mock approval, masking unease. And thus, you elevated extermination into an art. How quaint. Do not pretend that you entail sophistication, Ioulaum projected. You would have done the same had you known how. But where you dream of dominion, I have already mapped it, dissected it, and burned the flawed pieces throughout history. Jakarak's presence turned jagged, aggressive. We do not dream for this world, and all others will kneel beneath our minds. We are its destiny. We know the fulcrum of the grand design. Sazoril, silent until now, cast forth his thought. Then, name your price. If this is your truth, what toll must we pay for the next chapter? The pool stirred. The walls darkened. A thread of clarity, Ioulaum said. A sliver of sanity. You will offer it if you wish to know the threads of divine knowledge. Sazoril twitched. A thread of his mind, his capacity to distinguish critical from trivial, began to unravel. He would never again make clean decisions. The world would become equal in weight, forever. He said nothing, but the others felt it, for something had been taken. The first toll is complete, the oracle said. If you wish to continue, then let go of the notion that you are anything more than echoes in a cavern I carved. Then came the shape. A form rose from the pool, slow as thought rising from the deep subconscious. A tome, slick with glistening fluid, bound in some damp, unnatural leather. It floated upward without support, rising above the brine pool. Its cover bore no title, only glyphs that shimmered in and out of comprehension. Each letter a spell, half said. Each mark a scar. As it hovered, the brine clung to its edges. Ioulaum's voice returned, slow and deliberate. You've seen the wars. You know of my rise. But you understand nothing of the peak of the Netheril. The Alhuns leaned in. Whether they wished to or not, the compulsion and arcane pull was too great. I will show you now a chapter too dangerous to survive in the mind of a lesser creature. A record of the Golden Age, when Netheril reached such heights that the gods themselves were deemed obsolete. You believe your floating cities to be symbols of power. We treated them simply as a currency. The tome opened, its pages fluttering with wet, whispering slaps. Symbols flashed, maps of skies, chronologies written in shifting constellations, and diagrams of arcane engines buried within miles of mountains. The time of the chronomancer's birth in 1652 marked the beginning of Netheril's golden age, when the nation was at the very pinnacle of its power. Netheril began lifting one enclave into the sky per year. Soon, dozens of these magnificent monoliths of magic rode the air currents, or moved in orbital patterns around the loosely defined borders of the Netheril Empire. Each archwizard who created his enclave heeded Ioulaum's example, setting up his or her own laws and guidelines that the Enclave's residents had to follow. As time went on, the people had less and less say, and their voices regarding changes in government, tax rates, and the such were drowned out by the Archwizard's lust for more power. The Enclave soon became a vehicle to provide funding for the Archwizard's spell research, a staging area for campaigns against other Archwizards, and excursions into quasi- and para-elemental planes. The Chronomancer was concerned about other human civilizations. He felt that Netheril's snobbery toward less magically developed nations was a mistake that would come back and haunt the Empire, while the Chronomancer shared many of the Archwizard's weaknesses, such as the belief that the gods were just powerful Archwizards who could be challenged. He also cared about the well-being of Netheril's neighbours. This included the elves, dwarves, and tribal barbarians. Netheril was never without some rising menace, and the Archwizards had to spend a lot of time dealing with enemies from both the surface world and from within their own ranks. In the year 1963, Netheril bore witness to an internal menace. Citizens who had little aptitude or respect for magic, 9 men broke into the most holy and magical chamber of Ioulaum the Demidivine, killing 9 guards in the process and losing several of their own, to steal 24 parts of the Nether Scrolls. When the thieves escaped to the surface world, a manhunt began. The thieves, fearful of the Arch-Wizard's retribution, pounded the priceless golden scrolls into indiscernible baubles. They then sold the gold nuggets, receiving a small payout for all their trouble. During the Age of Discovery, 2,654. Minters found something else that would change the lives of the Netheris and the current age: gems known as Chardalins. An arcanist known as a Larian examined the gems as the miners brought up the assumed useless rocks to her. She was amazed at the degree of magic the stones seemed to possess. Before long, she realized that the gems could hold a single spell that was cast into them, later releasing the magic when the fragile gem was crushed. This discovery launched the Empire into an expedition frenzy that lasted a little more than 500 years. The discovery of the Chardalin gems caused many of the Netheris enclaves to intensify their efforts in mining the surrounding hills and mountains. Many of the Archwizards believed even greater prizes awaited discovery, and they invested huge sums of coin in an effort to be the first to find them. The Chardalin is now said to be found in larger densities around the spine of the world and Icewind Dale. Many purveyor of magical study is led to Icewind Dale with tales of grand power and knowledge cited within several tomes. The silence returned, dense. The kind of silence that knows you, names you, and waits for the next sliver of arrogance to expose itself. The Alhoons floated above the pool and then bowed, their pride unspoken but loud, even now, even here. Velxax coiled his mind inward and then projected sharply. The war was a beginning, the Golden Age a note in history, a proof of force. We, however, came for a design. We would know the truth of the Mythala. You believe you can comprehend it or replicate it, the Oracle replied, his presence blooming like a cold star in the chamber. You who see spellwork as your method to conquest, psionics as your secret to immortality, you who bind the arcane to your whims like leashes around the throats of your subjects. The Mythala was the extent of magical evolution. Girvan scoffed across the mindscape, haughty and dismissive. And yet, it is a device, is it not? A tool, however refined. One crystal among many. We too craft wonders. Ours endure without radius or restraint as yours did. You build fragments, Ioulaum answered. I built a foundation. In 845, I cracked open the weave. This magical device dug deep into the weave of magic, controlled by the goddess Mistral at that time, and gave access to raw, unfiltered magic, not to steal from it, but to rearrange it. They felt it, again as pressure behind their eyes. A memory formed, a sphere, crystalline and perfect, suspended in lightless space, pulsing with the breath of raw, unfiltered magic. Its color was absent, and the texture of countless jewels locked together in harmony. I pulled raw essence from the weave under Mistral's eye, Ioulaum continued. She watched, she laughed, she allowed it, perhaps out of curiosity, perhaps out of arrogance. And in her indulgence, I altered the laws beneath the surface of all arcana. Tol Ixith leaned forward, his mind narrowed. Then you found a way to bypass the need for permanency. You made enduring enchantments, without the sacrifice of years. I made them sustainable. Ioulaum psionically chuckled, a whisper laced with pride. Before the Mythala, to make a spell last beyond its moment was to peel the years off your soul. Mages aged with every enchantment. We wore our power on our bones. And that device, I allowed the permanence without the price. Girvan sneered. And yet there was a price, a radius. Your so-called quasi-magical items only functioned within a mile of the Mythala's pulse. And that was by design, the Oracle replied. You see limitation. I see order. A network of floating cities, bound by disciplined confines of power. Not chaos, but a lattice of control. And when the first mantle was forged, sight in darkness. A thought unheard but replicated in solid form. And magical connections. I knew the floodgates had opened to our people. Images surged into the Alhoun's minds, of artisans working spells into rings and robes and blades, of traders haggling over enchantments as casually as spices, of Netheril shimmering with magic so thick it hummed in the air like bees around a sunflower. Magic had become not just common, but cheap. And you allowed this dilution? Jakarak hissed. You built a world of cattle dressed in spell fragments. I built a civilization of dependence, Ioulaum replied. And this time, the humor in his telepathic voice was dry as ash. Every item required proximity to the Mythala. Every home, every tower, every throne. They rose because I allowed it. They floated because I held the anchor. Without me, they would fall. You created an addiction, Velxax observed, and called it an empire. An illusion formed within the pool, vast mountains suspended, rivers running from the edge of the mountaintop. A mountain was flipped like a coin, its base hollowed and filled with humming light. They saw the city, Ioulaum's enclave, rise into the clouds like a slow, encroaching storm. Tol Ixith pulsed with grudging admiration. You inverted a mountain, used gravity itself as a foundation and constant power source, and your Mythala was at its base, pulling everything upward. I ruled from above, Ioulaum said. I gave the people a voice, but only I had the finality of the decision. In the clouds, we were free of fear, free of ignorance. Those below, who feared magic, and for that, they became irrelevant. You made a sanctum, Girvan murmured, his thoughts softer now, thinner. A kingdom in the sky. I made proof that will outlive you all, the Oracle said. You believe yourselves destined for dominion over all planes, and yet you have not even mastered the skies. You live beneath the surface, afraid of simple discovery. You think in dimensions I outgrew before your first rebirth. There was a pause. Then Jakarak, his thoughts suddenly sharper, more hostile, thrust forward. And yet you lost it all. You fell. This lattice you built, this invention, it collapsed. Your Mythalas failed, and you retreated beneath the earth, slithering into illithid stone. The psychic field thickened. Every particle of thought aligned, as though the chamber bowed beneath an intellect that never stopped calculating. The Alhouns felt it, the slow shifting, of the oracle's focus. Jakarak's pride was bruised, but not broken. His thoughts lanced forward, sharp and contemptuous. You ruled a city, a floating shell of arrogance suspended by a myth Allah. And what of the other enclaves? You were not alone in the sky. Karsus rose too, and others. Pretenders, came the reply. My enclave was first. The rest were iterations, mutations born of my success, too quickly shared. Karsus. He had a brilliance, but that was after my time. A vision without understanding, without a contemplation of the cost. He wanted to rule gods, perhaps, or to become one. I only wanted to rule the reality in which I lay. I chose to descend, Ioulaum continued. Not out of fear, out of clarity. I entered the North Dark, where magic still pooled in deep, unspoiled veins. There, I began the next step. And what was that step? Asked Girvan, though his thoughts now flickered at the edges. I began to shed flesh, Ioulaum said, and now there was something in the voice. Distance, yes, but also rapture. What is flesh but a restriction? I wanted pure will, thought without limit, perception without decay. Velksax hissed. You made yourself into this, the brain beneath the pool. I became a continuity, the oracle replied. Only my mind and the magic it commanded. There was silence, then softly from the oracle, the toll. Tolixith trembled. In that moment, something deep in his mind broke, the part of him that understood consensus. The ability to align his thoughts with others. His pride remained, but now he could never truly understand agreement again. Every interaction would feel dissonant, like static pressing against his skull. Another price paid, Ioulaum whispered. Your questions dig toward the core, but the cost increases. With each answer, a fracture. With each truth, a crack. Proceed, if your ambition is worth your unraveling. A flicker rippled across the brine. Amusement. Disdain. You believe you are its inheritors, Ioulaum said. You believe you crawled from the husk of an elder brain and named yourselves new. But there is nothing new about you. There is only a recursion. I have seen it all before. Jakarak's pride lashed out. We are the culmination of evolution, psionics and arcana, made into a perfectible creation. We severed the leash, and for it, we need no elder brain. I know, the oracle replied, because I created your kind, the Alhun. The chamber did not tilt, the floor did not shift, but the illusion of control cracked in that moment. The 4 remaining Alhuns fell inward. The concept that they were original had begun to rot. It was after Netheril fell, Ioulaum continued, voice calm, infinitely slow. After I shed the last of my humanity and stepped fully into the deep. I had no more students, so I made them. From the ruins of Elintal, I drew mind flayers with potential. They wished to be more. They travelled from within the North Dark to learn of their own magical potential. They were among the many Netherese refugees who also made their way here earlier. Girvan tried to speak, but his thoughts slipped sideways, like ink across a page. I taught them. I gave them names. I gave them rituals. I showed them what your kind had never dared, how to graft necromancy to psionics, how to preserve spells, permanency of their mind through lichdom overlaid with their biological makeup. I called them the Alhun, and for it, they called me Oracle, Tolixith reeled. You made the first. I made them. I manipulated their organic and deceased threads. Ioulaum said, his voice now thick with layered memory. They served. Some survived, but most died when I no longer needed them, as they were not perfect. I needed more. So I took their minds, many of them, and shaped something new, something greater. Jakarak's presence burned like static. An elder brain, undead. That was the leap you took, the form we now see before us. That was the purpose, Ioulaum said. I created the first undead elder brain. I fed it with the psionic essence of my own creations, then merged my consciousness into it. I was no longer the arch-wizard, the father of Netheril, no longer a man or a lich. I became the oracle, the first undead elder brain mixed with pure consciousness. The air shuddered with unspoken horror. Each Alhun now saw the truth. Their rituals, their undeath, their very design had all begun here, beneath this pool, within this mind. Their ascension was a side experiment. Their ambition, a discarded solution. You are not true inheritors, Ioulaum whispered. You are echoes, fragmented imitations of a plan I had long since abandoned. Your kind crawled out of the bloodied womb of a ruined city, grasping at the bones I left behind. Netheril, broken already, shuddered again. Then what are we now? Proof, Ioulaum replied, that the experiment continues, that flawed replication is still replication. Ioulaum's elder brain corpse rose slowly from the brine pool now. You believe you seek dominion. You believe your destiny is a universal control, a universal constant. Dominion requires creation, and you create nothing. You are a discarded remnant of my past thoughts. The pool brightened, faintly, ominously. In their minds, they saw it again, the ritual. The moment Ioulaum became an elder brain, illithid minds twisted into obedience. Psionic screams looped into spell form. A great neural network bound by necrotic will to him, to his own grand design. You wish to understand your nature? Ioulaum asked. None answered. A stillness fell. The last toll was felt. Jakarak's sense of self-importance, the very engine of his ambition, flickered and failed. He still had pride, but it was hollow now, reflexive. He would continue to seek power, but never again feel entitled to it. The knowing would never leave him, that he was made by something older, something ancient. The oracle spoke once more, quiet as a thought in the dark. The tolls are paid. You may go, but when you cast your next spell, wonder if it is your will or mine. When you dream of dominion, ask whether you are thinking it or simply remembering my thought. I am the father of Netheril, the master of the Alhuns, the master of organic and death interwoven into my grandest of designs.